Hey, y'all, welcome to Challenge Accepted. I am Frank, and I'm here with Thomas.
Aloha, everybody. Get ready for an excellent day.
Excellent. Yeah, so we're talking X-Men, and they hit it out of the park once again. This is a really solid episode. What is your takeaway from this one?
Yeah, man, this is such a good episode. I really liked it, especially what they do for Jubilee in the beginning. It's just kind of special to see where she's at because I want to say in the early seasons, like the animated series, she might have been like 15 to
Yeah, that
16.
seems right.
And now we see like a few years have passed and it's like she's still that kid at heart, but she's technically an adult. That's all fun. We get a ton of video game references from our childhood. We'll have to talk about that. And at the end, we get to see what's going on with Storm and Forge. So pretty great episode. I will say though, it is kind of like a little jarring how it ends in a sense because you're like right in the middle of a story. It's like we got two half stories in a way. But we know it's a two-parter, so I'm excited to see what they do in part two.
Should they have extended out the Mojo World story and the beginning of Storm story into two different episodes?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have liked this maybe to be a whole episode in Mojo World because I think there's so much they could have done with that. I'm not really mad about that part. It's the life. I'm not really mad about anything, but the life death part. Going back and reading the comic in preparation for this episode, there's so much stuff they skipped over, and that was a little bit of a bummer. I feel like they could have developed the relationship a little bit more between Storm and Forge. Yeah, in the comics, it's like it's so deep and it gets so emotional. It's like one of the best love story one-shot comics ever that I've read for me, and it's like, holy shit, this is so good. But then they don't fully go there in this episode, and so I just kind of wish they had a little bit more time to develop that.
Especially since the turn where you find out that he built the devices, essentially, right? He started the devices that took away the mutant powers. It's not as of a big of a portrayal to us as viewers because we don't see them fall in love as much. So I think they lost that part.
Yeah, and in the comics, like he straight up just like made the gun. So he makes the gun. It's Gyrick, who we saw, I think, in episode 1, who's in jail. In the comics, he's the one that tries to shoot Rogue, and then Storm pushes Rogue out of the way and gets shot by the gun. But it's because the reason why it shoots Storm is because Forge tackles Gyrick in the middle of the shot, then hitting Storm. And so when he eventually brings her back to the house and they fall in love, that betrayal is so much deeper because it's like, you actually created the weapon that took all of my glory away from me. Yeah. So yeah, I think it just hits harder in the comic.
I wanted to go ahead and go to Threads real quick. Guys, make sure you follow us all on Threads, but I posed this question earlier. What did you think of today's X-Men 97? How did you like the two stories in one episode? And we have two very good responses on either side of this. So first, let's go to Quito Draw Stuff. I liked it. It reminded me a lot of how they split up the Savage Land story in the original series. I think half an episode is like the perfect length for Mojoverse. And I can't wait to see how Life Death Part 2 goes. Also, I loved hearing the original Jubilee. And now for the opposite side of that, we have Pleasure Model 00 says, no, both stories deserved more time. Sunspot is still a nothing burger, and this could have been a great episode to showcase more of his personality, hobbies, and insecurities. And I really liked that. I mean, Nothing Burger was fun, but the idea, like, you could have used this to really flesh out. This could have been really or flesh out a Sunspot. This would have been a good moment for that.
Yeah, I think they're both right. I mean, in a way, you know, it's like, yeah, this episode's still great. I still loved it. But would it have been nicer to have more time in both? For sure. And I think the Sunspot call out is pretty on point in some ways. We do get more character development with him, with Jubilee too. But really, when it comes down to it, the first half of this episode is about Jubilee. Right. Because it's like, she wants to have her birthday. She wants to go to the arcade. But Magneto's like, no, we need to train. And it's just that, like, the parent telling you got to do chores when you want to go play video games. Yeah. You know, it's kind of that. But that's what this episode's about. So I don't know. I still kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, a lot of the episode is Jubilee needing to grow up, and then I kind of felt like it was a little bit hamstrungy, like they kind of really pushed it too much. But then we have the older one that pops up, Abyssa, that kind of shows everything that Jubilee could be if she does listen to Magneto just a little bit. Because then, I mean, even for people who are only familiar with the show, or like much like myself, who couldn't care about Jubilee normally, suddenly you're like, oh snap, she becomes awesome. So it was really good to
Yeah.
see the potential. She's just not the firework girl like we used to always think of her back in elementary school. Like, oh, who wants to be the firework girl when you're all pretending to be X-Men? You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've always like. Well, I'll be fair. She's always annoyed me, but
course.
I've liked her because, I'm half Asian, she's Asian. So it's like I've always kind of rooted for her in that sense. But yeah, this episode, I actually really liked her. I was like, oh, okay. Like,
Yeah.
Jubilee's kind of a badass in her own right, too. And you get to see some development there with her. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of dig it. Should we try to do a rundown?
Let's do a quick rundown before we keep going because I'm already ready to dive into more. So let's do the
Yeah,
rundown first.
okay. Let me know.
Yeah. Okay. Ready, set, go.
Okay, so we open with the team. There's a coffee situation. We already see like there's a little Gambit, Rogue, and Magneto love triangle situation. And then it's like Jubilee's birthday. Should we train or does she get to just go have fun? Well, her and Roberto go up to her room, I think, which also is like a little like, hey-o. But then they get sucked into the Motendo video game. They battle some sentinels and kind of realize that this is a digital world because they're going from the city then to Genosha, which is interesting. That kind of pulls from an earlier episode as well. Then to the Savage Land, and Mojo gets involved and puts her in the X-Men Rise of Jubilee video game, and they get to battle it out in all these different spaces from Savage Land to Asteroid M, and then they get to like this final arena. It's the final battle. She has to battle Magneto. Roberto gets like whopped and just gets slammed in and is taken out right away. But Jubilee has to step up and meets an older version of herself named Absissa. And from there, it's just like they do a good job. They win and they get put back in the regular world. Now we're brought back to Life Death, which is like the second part of the episode. And it's just Forge and Storm getting along, and their relationship is developing. She realizes that he created these devices through the government that takes down mutants. And by the end of it, she's out, but then there's an owl demon.
Yeah. You're pretty much time. Yeah, and I want to
Yeah.
I want to double down on that. The owl demon shows up, and she had mentioned earlier, like that owl's been following us for a while.
Yeah, and it's stuck. Like that's one
stuck.
line I have is like it's stuck here. So maybe like she feels like she's stuck without powers.
Could have been. It could have been. And I was wondering because I know the owl is actually a Forge villain that he's fought in a few times.
Yeah, the adversary.
Yeah. So I wonder if Forge knew when she was referencing the owl, like, oh, that's actually the adversary watching us. I wonder.
Yeah. It seems like they're kind of giving a little bit of a Forge story in here as well, which is awesome. Forge is badass. Yeah. From the old show, all we got was him and X Factor fighting the X-Men. And it's weird because in that episode, it's like they didn't even really know each other.
They didn't know each other, but I love that old stuff because you got Cyclops' brother, which I always like whenever he's around.
Dude, yes. I love Havoc too. But there's an interesting line in this episode where he's like, or I think in the last episode where he's like, oh, me and Xavier are old friends. But they really weren't friends. I don't know if their friendship blossomed after that or something. But
Magneto style friends, like, oh, we're friends, but I'm going to try to kill you. That kind of friends.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, like X-Men style friends. That makes sense. But yeah, in that shot too, we get a call out to X Factor, or at least there's a picture when he's taking Storm into restore her powers. Let me see if I can find that team.
It's Pulsar, Havoc.
Yep, Polaris,
that's
Havoc, Multiple Man, Wolfsbane, and Strong Guy.
There we go. Wolfsbane.
Which is like
God,
the
good
expert
stuff,
team.
man.
It is. Yeah, hell yeah. And I do love that team. I love Forge as a leader.
Yeah.
Even in the new Krakoa era, he's such a badass. He's using like whatever biotechnology to form into different technology. I mean, he's Tony Stark, but for X-Men. So he's really cool.
Yeah, I know he's pivotal in the Krakoa stuff. He did a really good job. So let's focus on that half of the story since we're in that half as it is. We didn't get to see their love story develop much. Can you kind of, as somebody who read the comics, kind of explain their love story a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So he feels guilty, obviously, for creating the weapon that takes Storm's powers away. And it wasn't supposed to be like turned up to the max, I guess. It was just supposed to stun and maybe you lose your powers for a couple days, a week, or whatever. But it was like full blast. And so he feels terrible about it. He brings her to his home. and it's amazing, like this crazy building with all these like see-through floors and
Right.
like you this massive cityscape, and it's just like so technologically advanced. They took a complete opposite route in this episode, making it more of a cabin feel, but she's amazed by it, but so depressed. And so the whole time he's trying to get her out of bed, and he's trying to be like, hey, listen, we got to go on. Like, I'm going to figure out how to get your powers back. And she's like, just, almost to the point of like just not wanting to exist. It's super depressing and sad. And he finds this way to bring her out of that depression a little bit. And he feeds her, and he's like, I'm going to work on it. And he also tells her, you're so amazing without it. You're a goddess with powers or without.
Yeah,
You were a thief, you were a queen, you were all these things, regardless of your control of the weather. And this relationship slowly develops, and it's just really beautiful. It's just like what you hope any partner would do for you when you're at your lowest. And he's able to do it, but it's very 80s. He's very much like, oh God, this woman needs to get out of her own way. Kind of stuff. So it's a little rough, I think, in some parts, a little outdated maybe, and but it still is just beautiful because he's dealing with all these things too, and the guilt of knowing that he took her powers away. So
I think it's a part that they showed a little bit of it on the show, but I think it might be missing from is the fact that he sees her as a person when so many people see her as such a like even Magneto, we reference, like, sees her as a god essentially, and he does reference her that way, but it's like, you are a god, not your powers. And I think Forge is one of the few people that lets her know that she's more than just her powers.
Yeah, absolutely. Another great part of that comic book, as opposed to what they did here, and they kind of touch on it, which I did appreciate, but she's like, what in the comics, the whole room turns into Vietnam. She pushes this button, and like he relives his whole situation, that got him PSD and why he has the metal leg and the metal hand. But in the show, they don't really go into it. But the comics, there's also a part where she's swimming and he comes up to her next to her and he takes off his leg and he takes off his hand. And she's like, will you tell me what happened? And it's more interpersonal. It's more of him actually just telling her, like, this is what I went through. And she's like, it's so nice that you got to fix yourself. And he's like, there was nothing to fix. Like, I just adapted. This is who I am now. And, I'm still perfect the way I am, regardless if I had this or not. And I think that's like a beautiful message, especially for me who wears a prosthetic. Yeah. Like, it's just like, it touched me so deeply in the comics. And they kind of touch on it here. But again, like, this might be one episode for me where I don't necessarily love how it was adapted, because I feel like it was just a little rushed. But I still think they got some of those key moments here.
Yeah, they do mention the fact that he's adapted, not broken type of thing. But I do just feel like it was a little rushed. Like you were saying before, more X-Men, of course, is always better, and we wanted more X-Men. But totally. With the combination of with Mojo World and stuff like that, it was like Mojo World was so classic 90s cartoon X-Men story. It was so fun in that way. While this one was like setting up one of those multi-arc stories, like back in the day when they used to do 4-parters or whatever. Like this kind of felt like it was starting up one of those. So it was a little bit of both, and I'm happy with that. It's just, they did a great job.
Man, it was giving me visions of being at Chuck E. Cheese and like the pictures of Coke and Sprite and just greasy pizzas, and then touching all the like video game, like arcade machines, all greasy. And dude, it just brought me right back to that kid and that game. Like, the original, or I shouldn't say the original, because there's so many X-Men games, but the X-Men game in like 1993 that came out, that was the arcade. I still have that on my phone. I've had that on my phone for about 6 years. And you could play as like Cyclops, Storm, Nightcrawler, Wolverine. It was just so freaking cool. And the way they adapted it, where Jubilee got to do her own version of it, was so badass. I was like, this is amazing. The way they showed her firework, her pyrotechnics in the game was cool. Dude, it was great. Oh God, it brought me right back.
And then we got to see Abscissa. Thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it really shows how Jubilee's abilities can expand, much like we see with Jean Grey a lot in the last episode, where it's like she's not just lifting cars as a kid; she's also able to like put you in a hell universe,
Totally.
kind of thing.
Cyclops, like
Yeah,
too,
Cyclops
like
is a good example.
everybody's getting power ups.
So I think that was almost a promise to the fans, like, don't worry, this version of Jubilee is coming. And I look forward to that part, that part where she's like skating around. Like, oh man, that's going to be a cool mobility move.
Dude, she was like Bakugo from My Hero Academia, where
Yeah.
she's like using the explosions to propel herself on the skates. I was
Yeah.
like, that's genius. Turning it into like these firework sickles or like razors.
Oh my
things,
god, yeah, and
razor,
throwing
oh
them and
my-
stuff. Like, yeah,
Oh my God. I was like, this is so dope. Like
Yeah.
taking what they can do and just showing us like what a max level could look like
Yeah.
is an amazing thing that this show continues to do. And I would have never suspected from Jubilee, but like, hell yeah, she was dope.
she was dope. And then just the design of the episode on the Mojo World side was made for us, right? For our generation.
Yeah,
So many great games. I was mentioning Children of Adam, which is one of the sprites that they use. A lot of the sprites. A lot of this was based off of that. The '93 game, and you were talking about the old arcade game.
Yeah.
Pulled
When they
pulled
go
directly
to
from that.
totally the Savage Land, we get a Sauron drop in there as well.
Yeah.
Who's a big villain from the Savage Land and everything, and she beats him in that, which is pretty cool. But dude, totally. I mean, this is like throwback bait all the way, like nostalgia bait, and I ate every bite of it.
Did you notice the Marvel animation changed the music?
No, did they a little
It
bit?
was 16-bit music instead of the regular one.
No way, I didn't
Yeah.
catch that. That's
Oh yeah.
sweet.
A lot of the music during that part was like 16-bit versions of the theme song and stuff like that, which as a person who listens to the, the original soundtracks for games and stuff like that often, I was, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's beautiful. That's some good stuff right there.
Dude, hell yeah. And they also did the previously on X-Men was Jubilee this time.
Yeah.
So they keep changing it to whoever. That's like the tidbit or like the cue of who the episode's going to be about when you hear who announces the previously on X-Men,
Good call.
which we posted something on our threads. You should
Yeah.
go check it out if you haven't seen that.
Yeah. By the way, last night I was lucky enough to join the Joystick Show. Guys, go check out the Joystick Show. And I was saying like, oh, there's a future episode where it'll answer the Bishop thing. What it was, now that I saw it, wasn't that they went into the Days of Future Past video game, and that's what threw me off, because that infamous poster, right? Every time you see it, like, I know what
Yeah.
story we're talking about. That's such a great poster. And so I thought like, oh, they're going to go see Bishop again because they're going to Days of Future Past.
Dude, yes. Okay, that makes a ton of sense because I was like, what? But yeah, like you get that right when they're going into the video game and you see that poster on the wall, super iconic.
Yeah.
And yeah, everybody, that was totally a Leto pointing at the TV moment for sure.
Definitely.
But yeah, man, like they tied in so many different things, even changing the way Mojo was like from the original, the animated series. We first see him in season 2, episode 11, Mojo Vision.
Yeah.
And he's a total allegory for TV executives who are just like ratings, ratings, ratings. That's how we're going to make money.
And
We see him
consumption as a
again-
whole, really, like capitalism consumption. He's a lot of that. And so you see how it's like shifting from TV to social media or video games. Yeah.
Totally, exactly. So I love this one. Yeah, like TV kind of was the past. Let's be real. Like streaming has changed everything. Now the video game industry, everybody knows it's 2 times the size of music and movies combined, or I guess it's double both those combined. And it's like, of course Mojo would adapt to where he could get the biggest audience, and then pulling Jubilee and then video games in this time period. There was just so much thought that went into this part of the episode.
Right.
It was just like, oh man, like I could have had a whole episode of that.
What I love is, yes, Mojo is using video games, but video games at this time is an allegory for something that's changing the media landscape. At this time, kids are realizing, I'm going to say kids just for the sake of, but are realizing the storytelling available in video games and how much that can be a pinnacle of storytelling. And now that's something we know. Like everybody loves the Last of Us show or something like that. It's like, yeah, it's all video games. And I think if you were to do this episode, but it wasn't taking place in '97, and it would be social media, it would be something else. But it's just the fact that Mojo it's showing Mojo adapting to what's going on, and then of
Right.
course it's also giving the opportunity to Jubilee to like how her future self says, it's fun to know how the level ends. It's nice to be able to stick to your old ways, but at a certain point you have to grow up. And I thought that was a message to the audience as well, saying like, it's fun to revisit X-Men '97 and X-Men as a whole, but we also have to see that this show for all the haters out there in a way, has to mature with us and show you what people are dealing with today, and not just stick to like fighting the same Sentinels over and over again. You know?
Right. Damn, I feel called out right now.
But no, that's what I'm saying is like we could see what we love and then see like you have to, because Jubilee, you know, it's still fun. It's still fun to be doing this, but you have to see that like it's not just finding the Sentinels. Now you have to understand, why were the Sentinels sent after them? Oh, it's because some senator is a jackass, you know, like you have to elevate your thought on the process, on the situation, along with enjoying the journey.
Yeah, you're so right. I didn't even think about it from like an audience perspective, but I was thinking it from Jubilee's perspective. It now allows her to kind of mature as a character in the show too.
Yes.
You know, now she's not just going to be the little kid on the team. She gets to maybe, I mean, she's an adult. She's 18 now. And what does that mean when you've gone through Xavier School for the Gifted and now you're no longer a kid, you're an adult? What's that transition like? Yeah. We've only heard about it from Jean, from Cyclops, from Storm, you know, but we actually never got to see that. We actually have a character who's graduating from the program, so to speak, and to see where her stories are going to go. Again, with what her powers can do, oh my God, that opens up so much room for cool stories for Jubilee, and I'm really stoked for that.
Yeah, and I do suggest if you guys are going to watch this up again, while I was watching it, I did recognize the Jubilee side of it, but I mostly saw it as an allegory for the audience. And I think they were talking to us directly, explaining like this is why the show might feel different and stuff like that. So it's just a testament to the amazing writing team on this show. It's so incredible.
Yeah, dude, you're so right. Damn, I didn't think about it that way. That is kind of blowing my mind, and I love it because it shows what that writing team went through to think about how this would be portrayed, how they wanted the audience to receive it. And you're right. Thinking about it from that lens too, it's like, oh my God, like, do I need to grow up? Like, do I need to stop thinking this is just, you know, basing my life around how awesome this is? Which that's probably not going to change. But I think I understand what you're saying. And
just like Jubilee, it was awesome to play the video games. You don't need to grow up and change. You need to recognize that that change happens, and you have to still enjoy it or not enjoy it, but understand change is going to happen. And just like Jubilee didn't want to not, you know, she's going to go to the danger room now. She's going to listen to Magneto now because she knows what she could do if she sticks to that plan. And I think there's a lot of us, myself included, who can be reminded of that sometimes. Sometimes I like to just go play Minecraft and forget the rest of the day. That's not what's best, really.
Yeah. Damn. Well said, man. I appreciate that. I like it. Speaking about changes, though, we'll kind of briefly touch back on Life Death. We see that Forge is trying to restore Storm's powers, and it doesn't work. She also realizes that he was working for an organization that was trying to take powers away. So she runs away kind of in a dream sequence. Do you think it was a dream? Do you think it was real? And what do we have anything else to say about the adversary or that owl creature?
So what I took away from that is I think that while she was out there kind of in her emotions, it reminded me much of the Avatar state. I think at some point, unknowingly, she actually did fly again. I think she was actually Storm again, and then fell through the floor.
She drops in the through the ceiling.
So I think like just out of anger and rage, she wasn't realizing it, but she was doing the whole like, I'm Storm again. Yeah. I need the hair again. I need to feel the the fresh air, and fell through. And then Adversary came in and ruined things. But yeah, so I think there was a bit of that.
Oh man, that's super cool. I had no idea. I'm like, this is super trippy. It is like a pretty different change in tone in the episode. I still love it. But yeah, I was like, what is happening here? Because boom, all of a sudden she's through the roof. Forge is there. Then he gets bit by an owl and it like blackens.
Yeah,
like
what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on him getting bit by Adversary? What that could be doing?
I honestly, I wish I knew more about Adversary. This is like one character I don't really know a ton about, but it seems to be corrupting him, almost like the Void for the Sentry, where like the Sentry's biggest villain is just kind of like the side of him that's evil that wants to take over, but like actually can become a physical embodiment. Well, I think maybe that's the same thing for Forge, and maybe it's just trying to corrupt like the source. I don't know.
That's God. Sentry's a really good character that I can't wait for him to explore more. And it kind of reminds me of Batman currently in the comics right now, dealing with a Zur version of Batman, I think it's called, where he's dealing with. It's not an evil version of him, but very much like an evil version of him, and how much that means. So yeah, that would be interesting to see. I'd like to read up more on Forge. He's starting to become a cooler and cooler character to me. So
definitely. Yeah, I just didn't understand his backstory when I was growing up, but like he's got so much heritage and then what he's able to do. And like I love this moment from this episode where he talks about how his brain works. He's like, "Oh, there's certain parts of me that, you know, like not for every person their brain's not always working. Mine is constantly working and connecting the dots, like fixing a Rubik's cube but constantly." I'm like, "Dude, what would that feel like?"
I know, right? God, I kind of wish I had that one. I love.
Would you though?
Oh, I
You'd be
think
like
I would.
constantly tinkering and like you're like, I got to do this, I got to do this, and I feel like we already do that.
Yeah,
but like you would do that for.
I think his mutant powers. He has ADHD, but he's able to be productive afterwards. I like this because as a kid, I always seen him and kind of like I think Emma Frost was the same way for me, where they were just a MacGuffin to the story. Like, oh, you just need Forge because you need something invented, or you just need Emma Frost because you need somebody else to do psychic abilities other than our main two X-Men or something like that. Like,
or for evil.
Yeah, you just need an evil. You know, you didn't want to bring Xavier's sister out. So I always kind of thought something like that. But yeah, I this is definitely making LaForge. That's Star Trek. Forge a much cooler character. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. He is. And man, I really do like Forge a lot more. And I'm just surprised what this show is doing for characters I didn't really care about. You know, I wasn't one of those people that liked Morph. I like Morph so much more in this show. I feel like Morph has so much more personality and ability and agency. Forge too is just deeper. Jubilee is growing in front of our eyes. Like it's like, wow, like this is character development. And I can't get enough of it. I dig this show.
It's a good show. Make sure you guys tune in and let us know on our social medias what you thought of this show. That's really important for us. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks so much, everybody. We are running a contest. We're in A24 month. The next challenge is Ex Machina. So come on in, watch the movie, send us a review, and you could possibly win your own A24 hat.
Heck yeah. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Aloha.